Hey everybody, it is Comics on Infinite Earths, and I'm Michael. On the other side is John. You might know John from previous
Hey,
episodes.
how's it going, guys?
I have an announcement to make. There's a very, very big project that I want to tackle in the new year, and as you've noticed, the episodes of Comics on Infinite Earths are becoming slower and slower, and the gaps are getting larger and larger. So I am going to step down as the lead on this show. John is gracious enough to take over. Hopefully, it'll be more than 6 episodes a year because I'm a bum.
Yeah,
uh,
I hope to do right by the show.
yeah, and I know it derailed a couple times where we're just obviously doing filler, where we just talked about the Batman movies. I know. It's supposed to be about comic books. I know this. I'm sorry. I cheated. Uh, so I have planned
Yeah,
4 more episodes. I will be out by October. And then hopefully, I don't know if you're going to continue in November and December, or if you just want to wait till the new year. It's your call. I will hop in and out from time to time to help with episodes, stuff that I really want to discuss. But for me, I am overwhelmed, and I apologize to the fans of the show that I haven't been there.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's hopefully, as I said, I want to do right by the show, and definitely it'll give me an opportunity to read things that I've never actually gotten around to reading. So it gives me purpose in life. Let's just say that.
Yeah. The name is obviously a play on DC Comics. I know that we've gone heavily on DC Comics, and I kind of want to make up for that. And you're very independent minded, and you read pretty much everything. So hopefully, it'll be more expansive and mature. Whereas I am a lazy minded fool who just wants to see people beat them up. And speaking of that, we got one of the greatest beat up titles of all time, and we are going back to an independent title for the first time in I think in a year since we did Saga. We are discussing Savage Dragon and the Rocketeer. I forgot how much I miss Savage Dragon. I have the first collection here, and I am going to go buy the omnibuses. You can get them really cheap. They have a shitload of issues in each one. I think it's like 27 issues, and
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, an annual, and you can get them for dirt cheap. And I am truly excited. This was my favorite comic through all of the 90s. And
I've never, up until this point, I had actually never read The Savage Dragon.
wow,
I
okay.
knew it existed because the Image stuff was kind of a big deal when it launched.
Right.
But it was also there was a Saturday morning cartoon for it. That and Wildcats, I think.
And they were always talking about doing a movie. It was always coming up in Comic Scene and Wizard that it was going to be Bruce Willis. They were going to get him, and then for years they was like talking about Dwayne Johnson doing it. I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's one of these things that's just too goofy, but it would be cool as a CGI show.
Yeah, I can see that. And I'll be honest, this did not work for me. I think part of it is in the collection that we have, there isn't any real they don't separate the issues in any way that's meaningful. So it's just kind of like things happen, and there ends up being time jumps and things like that. And there's a lot of stuff where it got really distracting, where things kind of happen, but there's no context for why they're happening. It's just all of a sudden there's an explosion, and
Yeah, here's what I think it is. I think Eric Larson didn't want to waste any time, and he jumps to the action immediately. This is during the Extreme era. How old were you when Image Comics debuted?
let's see, what was that? What, 92 or
Yeah,
so?
yeah.
Yes, I'd be 11 when that.
Okay, so you're the right age. I was 15. This is during the Extreme era. This is when things are changing so fast. Most of the stuff from this era is embarrassing. It's really dated and silly and stupid. I think the only company that came out of this without looking stupid was DC Comics, and even they weren't at their peak because they were pulling tons of stunts. For anybody who doesn't know,
Yeah.
we did do an Image Comics episode in the very beginning. I think it was like the 3rd episode. Eric Larson had just come off a red-hot run of Spider-Man, and then he went off. He was on Amazing Spider-Man, then he went over to Spider-Man after Todd McFarlane left. So he was one of the last Image guys to really bail. And then he went off and he brought his whole creation from childhood, Savage Dragon, which debuted in a comic book called Vanguard, and he just got it together. And of all the comics that are out there from Image, They're all dead except for Savage Dragon, and Eric Larson is still working on it. I think Spawn might be still around, but Todd McFarlane's
Spawn's still going, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's not involved at all, right? He's not drawing or anything.
No, I think he's at least writing it. I don't know if he's drawing it. Honestly, I see them there. They've been building up to issue number 300, and
isn't that shocking? You would think that these comics would be long gone. Independent comics do not last very long. I think the record for the longest time was Cerebus. What was that, like 75 issues or something, done by one guy? Well, Savage Dragon is, I'm almost certain, is up to 300 issues, really close to it. And yet it's always been Eric Larson. I think one issue where he was behind the schedule and he got someone to sit in, that was it. And
yeah, if you're going to talk about something that's 100% creator controlled, I mean, yeah, it's written, drawn, inked, not colored. About to say colored by him, but no, he does have a colorist on.
Yeah, and Chris Eliopoulos or whatever has always been his letterer, and he was great. I love him. He did I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a Sunday comic with these two goofballs and their dog, and it only lasted like 4 or 5. Desperate Times. It's called Desperate Times. I want to give a shout out to that guy because he's never going to get noticed for that, because that was a cult thing right there.
But yeah, but yes, the Savage Dragon is definitely, if anyone ever wanted to see what the 90s was in comics, Savage Dragon is a very good example of 90s aesthetic.
Yeah,
because everybody's a cyborg.
It's very R-rated, or just borderline. There's lots of blood. There's sex. There's cussing. People die like crazy. I mean, you think Punisher's violent? This is off the charts.
They like his girlfriend. He gets a girlfriend at one point, and they fridge her within like 3 pages.
Yeah. The one thing I don't like about what Eric Larson does, because I'm absolutely a huge fan of his art. It's very stylized, but it doesn't want to make me barf like a lot of the stuff like Rob Liefeld did and McFarlane and Will's Portatio and stuff like that, where it's overly stylized. It works, but it's the 90s. It's boys comics. You want to be edgy. You got to have every character with gigantic boobs, like the size of your head boobs.
But it's like one thing that even there with that is Savage Dragon's arms are never consistent. His arms fluctuate from somewhat realistic proportions of like like maybe like a Schwarzenegger type arm, very obviously he's jacked.
Yeah.
To like Hulk arms at one point, to just like, I bring it up because even though I never want to harp on art unless there's really something that bugs me, because I'm not an artist. I can't. Stick figures for me would never be consistent. So, so it's like if I'm noticing something that's really inconsistent, there's an issue.
Yeah. There was a few spin-offs of Savage Dragon, a few of his own, of course, but there was a character named Star who shows up in this one with really long, really stupid-looking hair metal, who I really enjoyed, but he was clearly a Spider-Man knockoff. But here's the problem I will say with Eric Larson. A lot of his characters are very similar to other Marvel characters, and it's hard to ignore, even though he has said, their own original creations. I'm like, yeah, but they're really close to a lot of other characters.
Yeah, that Overlord character is very much a low-rent Doctor Doom.
Right. Well, Savage Dragon himself is very reminiscent of Incredible Hulk around 1990, when Peter David would combine Banner and Hulk together. Hulk was smaller, but he was more intelligent, and he was kind of a wise ass. Very similar to the way Savage Dragon is portrayed.
Yeah, and I'll say this, there is some. I do like the writing in this, in a mostly general sense, because there's some very interesting takes with the Savage Dragon character. He is pretty well developed, considering that he's a guy with amnesia.
Yeah. Like dealing with the PTSD of losing his girlfriend, like he's just drowning in depression and violence and drinking. That was an interesting take.
Yeah, because that's an interesting way because I guess what we have is like the mini series is what we're looking at here, like the little first run, and then it went into a full run series.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting way to end it, where he's just kind of like, yeah, PTSD, depressed. He's just kind of sitting there in a dark room, just completely and totally done with the world, really. And yeah, I just kind of sat there and went, well, that's a way to end your book right there.
He's so prolific with creating new villains, and he'll take them out at the bat of a hat. You're like, just shocking because when it comes to creating new villains, he is almost as prolific as Stan Lee. Every issue has somebody new. It's very unique and a crazy. Doubleheader is one of my favorites. It's just a head stacked on top of another head. That's a crazy idea. Was it Magma or something like that? I thought the design work. Here's the other thing: the design work on all the characters, I think, is really interesting. It's kind of a throwback to Kirby a little bit, but with a newer edge. Not on a Rob Liefeld edge, but just like the way it was designed seems more modern. And it's just shocking that he'll just kill these guys off after all this time creating them. Whereas Marvel, damn well they would milk the shit out of every single character.
Oh yeah, no character is ever wasted. They will find a reason to use them, even if it is to have the Punisher kill them, and only then to have them come back at some point.
Well, yeah, a lot of times with the Punisher, it would just be a new guy in the same costume.
I don't know, heck, there's an actual run of Punisher where all these villains that he killed are brought back to life.
Oh, okay.
So he has to go and kill them again.
I don't know if you ever read it, the second Punisher War Journal, where it's more comical and, dark humor, and he takes a rocket launcher to Stilt Man and blows him in half.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Stilt Man, he sucks. He should have died a long time ago. I'm really tall.
The best one is Lady Stiltman.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
There was a Lady Stiltman.
There's always a lady version of it. I always thought that was funny. Lady Deathstrike, Lady Deadpool, stuff like that. Now, are you interested in reading anything beyond this on Savage Dragon? Because I'll tell you, I read up to issue 50 or maybe 75.
I would assume that this does get better. Like I would say I'm not impressed in buying it. It's like, had I paid, well, actually even look at the cover price, $10 isn't that bad.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there going, it's like, I'm glad I got it as a used blind buy purchase.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I know it has to get better because as he creates the mythology for his character and the world and all that stuff, because I thought was kind of interesting, although a little ham-fisted, was them creating their image universe. And so you'd have the cameos from all these characters, including a really forced one for Spawn.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's also one with Badrock, which is kind of a throwback to the old, hey, Hulk is going to take on the Thing just to have fun and bash each other, It was like that with Savage Dragon, and he was just testing him out to see if he'd be a good team member. He's like, you asshole. You caused all this destruction. Why'd you just ask me to join the team?
Yeah, they literally threw shade at Marvel there, too, because, that's what they do in Marvel Comics. It's like...
Yeah, if you remember any of the teams, Wildcats, I think, was fairly solid, which is what Badrock's from. Jim Lee, of course, is still a phenomenal artist. It's the other stuff. The shipping was inconsistent. The artists would just, disappear, collect their millions, and hire somebody else to do the art for much, much cheaper. Rob Liefeld did it. Will Portacio was very, very far behind at all times. There was Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk was great. The problem with it was every single time it would get going, Jim Valentino would kill off that Shadowhawk and replace him again. So it just wasn't enough time to get used to him. It was the costume's cool, but who's the man behind the costume?
Yeah. Wasn't he the guy who kind of looked like a mix between Wolverine and Shatterstar?
Yeah, kind of. Well, maybe not so much Shatterstar. More, I want to say Darkhawk. That's obscure, guys. Darkhawk. He was a short-lived thing in Marvel. Savage Dragon, for me, and I want to revisit some more of it because the story, the layers that he builds throughout the years just get more intricate, and he does stuff you never, ever expect. He wipes out people that you would never expect, and just takes in different directions that were unusual for comics at that time. And he backs off on the cliches of Image Comics. He backs off on the splash pages, which I always thought were lazy. Hey, instead of writing dialogue, we'll just have 2 pages filled with one giant guy punching another giant guy, which is essentially is just one panel, not 2 splash pages. I hated that bullshit.
Yeah. Well, he does his fair share of splash pages, but
it backs off. Yeah, it backs off
like
quite
I
a
think
bit.
the most striking is that first panel. Just the Savage Dragon in the middle of a big fire.
Yeah.
I think that is, of everything, that is the most striking, and I open the book and it's just, whoa, hello.
Yeah, I'm curious to watch the cartoon again because I don't remember how closely it stuck to this. I can't imagine they killed off Super Patriot in the cartoon and turned into a crazed cyborg killer.
No, honestly, I would not even remember a thing about it other than it existed.
Yeah.
And I know I saw some of it because I remember watching it. I couldn't tell you anything about it. I remember trying to watch Wildcats, but that did absolutely nothing for me.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It was a cheap X-Men to me.
Yeah, pretty much. And at that time, you had X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, all the quote unquote good ones were all out. So
what's funny is I wonder if he made so much money when Savage Dragon first debuted, and that's what keeps him going. Because I can't imagine it selling that well, especially since comic books in general are just not selling. And this guy is on his own. It's a title that's been around forever. Who knows how much profit he's making off each issue, but maybe he made so much in the beginning that it's carried him this whole time.
Yeah. My local comic book shop doesn't carry Savage Dragon, as far as I know.
Wow.
Maybe it's in the back issues, but I don't see any on the wall. It's not a wall book. It's not in the Women with the Trades, as far as I can recall.
Huh.
It's like the only way I have read Savage Dragon is from that blind buy and off Comixology. Because I've got the access to actually the omnibus as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy the omnibuses. They're pretty cheap, and you get so many issues. I remember making it up to 75 or 80, and that's when I kind of just went broke and I couldn't buy comic books anymore. And I keep meaning to get back to it, and I just don't.
Yeah, like I said, I think it is definitely worth. I think it would definitely be worth checking out because even then, this was what I'm looking at is a relic from '92.
Yeah.
There are a lot of not very good comics from '92 that have moved on and become great comics. Heck, even just starting out in '92, like X-Force. X-Force wasn't very good when it started, but it's very early on in its run, it just kind of figured out what it wanted to be and started becoming good.
I'm looking at I don't know. It just seemed like an era that was more about the art than the story, and I think that's why, or spectacle, or glow in the dark foil covers, that kind of bullshit. Let's kill off a character and make a major event out of it. I'm like, well, okay. What is the story any good? Oh, all right.
Oh, it doesn't matter. We just sell units, not sell stories.
It was all speculation. These stupid douchebags would buy 50 copies of each comic thinking it was going to be worth a crap ton, and then they dump it because they bought too many.
I am one of those idiots.
You really are.
No, recently, only because, and I hate myself for this, Rob Liefeld seems to be the guy who creates everyone's favorite characters. And he did a series recently called Major X. I own the first issue of Major X only because, for some reason, I have a feeling that whatever happens in 20 years, everyone will want this character.
Wow. Okay.
It's a shitty comic. From what I understand, the series as a whole isn't bad, but that first issue bites.
I'm not on board with Rob Liefeld at all. I can't stand him.
No, it is. I will say this: it very much feels like it was a comic that fell directly out of the '90s and right into 2019.
Wow. Well, we are in '90s nostalgia right now, so it's perfect that we're even discussing this.
Yeah, as I said, I hate myself for it, but at least I consciously went into it going, "This is probably not going to be worth anything."
Yeah.
But damn it, Liefeld seems to be the guy who makes all the things that people want.
I believe that Eric Larson is the very first person to go back to Marvel. If I remember correctly, around 98 or 99. And he wanted to do it anyway, but I think it was also to supplement, doing some spinoffs and stuff like that. And this is before he became, the CEO of Image. He did a really excellent series for Marvel called Nova. Of course, the classic character, but he did his own take on it. I think he might have done New Warriors and a little bit of Spider-Man, and then he was like, you know what, I'm done with the corporate stuff. I'm just going to go back and do my thing.
Well, that's the thing, is you do it kind of like the, oh god, what's that director? Soderbergh. It's, you do one for them, you do one for you.
Right.
So he goes back, he can go back to the corporate culture, he makes money, or at least can do a nest egg a little bit, so they can go back then and work more on his creative control thing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So
he
it's
was
like,
also CEO of Image for a long time. Image was run by Jim Valentino for a while, and Valentino wasn't looking for quality. He was looking more for, just wide variety of crazy things, but he wasn't really focused on story. It was more about getting, hey, let's get this comic published. They'll license out our name or their label. They'll rent our printers or whatever. I don't know how it works exactly. But it was damaging sales, and everything was falling apart, and then he got voted out. That's when Eric Larson took over, and he is responsible for getting Walking Dead made, and that's basically like their biggest thing. Robert Kirkman was brought over by Eric Larson, and then Robert Kirkman now runs Image.
yeah, and I think that was the better step. Instead of trying to create yet another universe, you just create a haven like Vertigo for creator.
Well, it's also
I
think Valentino was about quantity, not quality.
Yeah, you kind of just throw out as much as you can, and at some point, hopefully they'll sell enough to warrant something.
Yeah.
Or throw whatever idea you can at the wall and see what sticks.
There were a couple other spin-offs I want to mention real quick because I bought all these things. I mean, I was crazy about Savage Dragon. Vanguard, which was a character in the 80s that Savage Dragon was born out of. That was a fun series. Freak Force, which I owned all of those. The previously mentioned Star. There were Super Patriot spin-offs. God, there was another one. I want to say it was like a Deadly Duo. It was a Deadly Duo. Those two douchebag idiots. They had a miniseries. I am actually surprised that there was never a video game of this, because this seems like a fun beat-em-up kind of, Super
This
Nintendo
would have
kind
been
of thing.
perfect this would have been perfect for a side-scroller beat-em-up.
Yeah.
Well, granted, you would have to have at least two characters, and does Savage Dragon have a partner later on that would have worked for that, or would that have been a little too late, like closer, like, say, something that would have debuted before 95?
Well, he had side characters that could have helped out maybe on each stage. He could have got help from Star on one stage, and he dated that one girl from Freak Force. I can't remember her name. I don't want to give away anything. I'm trying to be quiet about this without ruining it for you. But he could have, like, what are we talking about? We're talking hypothetically a game that we can never make. What the fuck are we doing?
Exactly.
But God.
No, we could still make it. You go to Eric Larson and say, hey, we, obviously we'll have to meet a programmer, but
like a retro style 16-bit bash, side-scrolling beat 'em up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if we are pitching that, Eric Larson, I say each level, he has a different sidekick hop in to help him for a little bit. Like, they're required. You have to team up with them in order to beat the levels. Like, maybe the first 3 levels is just Savage Dragon, but then after that you have to get a character. You have to choose the right character, because they'll have different skills.
Okay. That definitely works for the modern day thing, because, in 16-bit time, you couldn't really have gotten that to work. No. But nowadays, yeah.
The one comic book that did get a video game that sucked total fucking ass was the Rocketeer, which is our second book. And I gotta tell you, it's nothing original, I'm saying, but man, video games based on movies back in that era were just the worst. Ugh.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, heck, they're pretty much still the bottom of the barrel type games, even though they don't really do them as much anymore.
I'm gonna look this up. I want to know if there was ever a Savage Dragon game ever in development.
It feels like there should have been. But I'll say this, at least while you're doing that, I loved reading The Rocketeer. It hits all the sorts of nostalgia things that I had as a kid, because my dad was very much into the old serials. I mean, I grew up listening to The Shadow. Rocketeer is still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's everything about it hits the right levels for me, and especially now having read the comic, I understand one, why the film was good, and two, why the film definitely needed to kind of smooth over some of the edges that the comic has. Because the comic, yeah, Cliff is is more of a complete and total dick in this one than he
Yeah,
is in the movie.
I've read the comic book a couple times, and frankly, I'm gonna stick with the movie. I prefer the movie. I think they lock down the characters better. The action is better. The villains are more expansive. The story just seems so simple. But let's be fair. Uh, oh shit, who created this again? God damn it! I left the comic.
Dave Stevens.
Dave Stevens, who passed away. I left the comic in the other room. I thought I remembered everything. Meh. No, there was never a Savage Dragon game. They never even developed one, so I just want to check that. But yeah, The Rocketeer is my flat out favorite comic book movie. Yes, there's been like 90 of them since. Yes, Marvel's put everything on the planet towards it. While watching Iron Man, I go, this movie's great. It's just a slightly more expensive version of Rocketeer.
Well, that's when they did the first Captain America movie, and you had Joe Johnson direct him, going, yes, that makes sense. He made the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
He knows. He lives, breathes this shit apparently, because both those films are great and feel like they dropped out of that time period.
Yeah, there was that time period, and me and Andrew did an episode called Pulp Heroes at Video Night. You know the era right after Batman, where they started making all these retro superheroes. And people think that after Superman they started making them. But if you look, they were not making superhero movies. They were making comic strip movies. And that's how they approached Superman in a campy, this is a comic book, but it's also a comic strip, and it's a cartoon and a TV show, that kind of level. So, they made Annie and Popeye and stuff like that. But it was after Batman is when they started looking at the pulp heroes. Yes, most of them are still comic strips again. That's so weird, right?
Yeah, because you had the Phantom, you had the Shadow,
Dick
Rocketeer,
Tracy.
of course, being Dick Tracy, yes. And also, all those films are good. I mean, I know a lot of people seem to hate on Shadow and Phantom, but they're both exactly what
Yeah, it's what you expect.
that I could be. Yeah.
The Rocketeer is interesting because, we said it was a short-lived series, only 5 issues. I'm not even sure if they were even full issues. I think they were part of something else, and they kept going from company to company, and it took forever to get all 5 stories finished. But it also has a little bit of a comic strip quality, like the Phantom or Prince Valiant, something like that. It doesn't really look like a comic book from its time period. It looks so much better.
Yes. And, also, I was thinking about it, and I guess this might, again, being not an artist or even all of that knowledgeable of so much art, but one thing I did notice was, to me, there's very much some of that Norman Rockwell Americana.
Yes.
In how he draws everything. And, and he's got the pinup art, because you have Betty, who's very much, is not supposed to be Betty Page, but it's Betty Page.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the stuff with those art photos segments are yeah. That's the thing where we're talking about big tits and all that stuff, and the sexuality of superhero comics and stuff like that. And yeah, it's that's a nice butt shot and things like that in a lot of these comics. No, these are genuinely hot images. Probably drawn from various actual pinups.
Yeah, I can imagine this, if it wasn't produced by Disney, that Jennifer Connelly would have probably pulled off some of that risque stuff because she didn't shy away from it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's the comic, basically, the film does essentially follow a lot of what is in the comic.
Yeah.
It's most of the same beats, you just don't have a main villain like our villain in the film. So it's just kind of him doing adventures as the Rocketeer, and then.
Well, it just seems more epic. The way that Joe Johnston filmed it, the way the guys wrote it, it has an Indiana Jones feel to it, so it has that serial kind of build up every 15 minutes. These epic shots. It's Joe Johnston worked with Lucas and Spielberg, and he picked up those skills with you see in Honey I Shrunk the Kids But you see it full force in Rocketeer. He is creating these huge iconic imagery. I remember seeing the posters for this, which is still the best superhero poster I've ever seen in my life. That silver one where he's shooting,
yes.
the Art Deco one.
Yeah.
But do you remember the trailers? Like they showed him on top of the dog diner, whatever, the lights flashing over and the flags behind him, and they're like, the Rocketeer, the Rock who?
Well, no, the big iconic shot from that trailer is the one where he's on the observatory in California. Why can't I remember the name of the damn observatory?
Oh, the one from all the movies, like they showed Bowfinger and Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah. I'm a bad former Californian. I can't remember the damn name of that place. But yes, all those shots, yes, are very much larger than life and huge, and you get bits and pieces of that in this comic. I mean, it's not Sin City level of devotion to the images, but there's a lot of what Stevens puts into this comic that ended up on that screen.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also they picked the correct writers. Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo were with Empire Pictures for years, and they wrote a bunch of fun, campy stuff. They did Trancers and Zone Troopers, Eliminators, which are basically low-budget comic book movies. And they also did the Flash TV show from 1990, which is a heavy similarity in its style.
Yeah, but that's also within that time of the 90s, there was a little bit of resurgence of Art Deco style.
I mean, you kind of see it. I want to say it starts in the late 70s is when we started having. It's usually how nostalgia works. There's usually like a 25 to 30 year cycle before everybody goes crazy for it again. And you had like 1941 and stuff around that time period that was reflective on the 40s and 50s. And then it just kind of exploded in the late 80s, whatever, where we're starting to get, zoot suits and stuff like that, and swing and lounge lizards. That kind of attitude was coming about, and then the big Art Deco explosion of the late 80s. And Rocketeer is right there at the center of that huge resurgence.
Yeah. Oh, one thing with the art, I definitely was noticing this, and I really wonder. I wonder if there's somewhere in an interview somewhere with him. They go to they talk about what's Cliff's time at the traveling circus, and you have the freak show stuff. And I really wonder if some of that was based off the movie Freaks, because you have the kind of the pinhead type character. It looks very much like the people from the film.
Yeah, I can see that as influence. He really pulled a lot of stuff from his youth into this. And as far as I can tell, this is the only thing that Dave Stevens created in this medium. He was more of a fine artist. And it's sad that he died so young and he wasn't able to give us more work. Yes, the Rocketeer has continued. His family licensed out the rights, and it's just not as good. I read them. The Hollywood horror looks so cartoonish. It looks like a Saturday morning cartoon. It just doesn't look the same. You have to have that style of art.
Yeah, there was one that I couldn't tell you which one it is from IDW. I had downloaded it through Comixology, and I liked it, but it was very much. It didn't have the same feel to it, though. And I would have to go and try and find it at this point. It was good, but not great.
Yeah, it's just sad there was never a sequel to this. It just didn't make a ton of money. I think people were kind of disappointed by, this is going to be the big summer release. The same thing happened the year before with Dick Tracy. They put $1 gazillion in promoting it. It cost like $65-70 million and only made like 100. And Disney was like, ugh, deflated. And then the Rocketeer doesn't even make a profit. It ends up the same, as what it cost. And I kept thinking, well, maybe video will revive it, and they'll maybe do a direct-to-video sequel or something. I kept expecting the Son of Rocketeer.
I keep hearing that there's a thing called Rocketeers that they want to make, where it's a black woman pilot.
Yeah.
And I think the last time anything about that was even mentioned was in 2016.
Well, right here it was announced on July 28th. Disney Junior has released a new trailer for The Rocketeer, an upcoming animated adventure series which is inspired by Dave Stevens' comic. Kit Secord is the daughter of Kyle Secord, and she is in line to inherit the rocket pack wearing superhero who can fly. Takes on this guy. So I guess it must be set in like the 60s.
Okay, because I'm sitting there going, oh no, because they did change this name for the film, didn't they?
Yeah, but you know what? This might not actually be a sequel. It says inspired by, but it says it's her dog Butch and her airplane mechanic grandfather Ambrose Secord. So Peavy is not part of it. So I wonder if they're reinterpreting the whole concept, which I'm not sure I'm a fan of. It should have been set in the 60s and had his kid.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I had heard was with this, the Rocketeers was going to be kind of a reboot / sequel where it acknowledges the existence of the original film, but it was essentially its own storyline and its own existence. But yeah, I mean, I'll be game for anything if it's done well.
It also says IDW is launching The Rocketeer Reborn from the writers of Star Wars Adventures and artist Javier Pulido from Hawkeye.
Okay. That'll be interesting.
Huh.
It's
set now, though. It's set in current times. Yuck.
Oh.
I don't know about that.
All right, yeah. I'm getting a little less interested now.
Yeah. It says 80 years have passed since, the one thing that the movie does get also that the comic is hard to translate is the chemistry between Peavy and Kyle. Kyle, am I saying the right name? That's not the right name, is it?
No, Cliff.
Cliff Secord. There's an actor named Kyle Secord, I think. And I just got distracted. I just love watching those two work together. Of course, I just love Alan Arkin. I think he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you had a relative newcomer with Billy Campbell. I mean, he had been on a few things. I think
he was in a really good actor. He was in a really good TV show for a couple seasons called Crime Story, which was after Michael Mann and Anthony Yerkovich left Miami Vice. They went on to create Crime Story, which is set in the 50s, taking on the mob. Only lasted 2 seasons, and when they got canceled, I think is when he got cast in this. And the sad part is, he really didn't get a whole lot of work after Rocketeer. It's as if this is what they used to do with superhero people, though. They used to throw them away. If the movie didn't do very successful, who needed them? Toss them out. Move on.
Yeah, which is a shame, because this seems to happen with a lot of people like that who kind of show up in these these little time period pieces, and they work. They basically do feel like good leading men for that. And then, nothing ever really happens to them. I actually feel kind of bad for Armie Hammer. I think the Lone Ranger film is a mess.
Yeah. But I think he's had a resurgence because he was smart and embraced really good independent movies.
Yeah, but he's like, I felt in watching that film, I'm going, that's a guy who should be the lead of like something better.
Well, he was almost Batman. He got cast as Batman.
Which really makes me feel bad because I want to see that version of Justice League now.
Yeah, especially since
as much as George Miller's too.
Well, let's think about this.
Version, I would have.
Let's go off on a tangent here. Let's think about the people who have been in these kind of movies and what they threw away Sam Jones after Flash Gordon. And by the way, none of these things are the actor's fault. It's usually we discover these movies are great later. The audience reaction is just meh. So the studios don't want them anymore. Clinton Spilsbury, who played Legend of Lone Ranger, which was expected to be a big hit and totally tanked. That is the only movie he's ever been in.
Well, you have Billy Zane,
right?
Who is extremely charming. I mean, again, you don't have to like the Phantom film, but you can't argue that Billy Zane is not charming as shit in that movie.
Almost went to Bruce Campbell. It was pretty much a tie there.
Yeah, and as much as I would have loved to see that, I love Bruce, but Billy Zane was a much better choice.
Well, Billy Zane has more of an exotic feel, which is necessary for a character that's in the African jungle. I don't think Bruce could have pulled that off.
No. He would just have been smarmy, and like Bruce Campbell does very much feel like he belongs. Like hell, Hudsucker Proxy he's perfect in that.
Yeah, as a heel.
He needs to be more in kind of films like that. He needs to exist in like a 1920s, 30s world.
Yeah, and that's why Briscoe County works so well. But what I was thinking is, you have to be an established star already in order for it to work. Batman with Michael Keaton, The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, it didn't really damage any of their careers. Dick Tracy, Warren Beatty, you know. But if you're a nobody and you come out and just star in these movies, and the studio is more than happy to go, well, next.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. And part of it goes, some of these ones could have just worked on TV anyway. Maybe not The Rocketeer, but, you know, you could have done some of these things as there could have been a Shadow TV show.
Oh, totally. There should still be. I can't believe there hasn't been. Or why isn't Dick Tracy a TV show? That seems perfect for, like, HBO. What was the other one I was thinking of? The Spirit. Have you ever seen the pilot movie with Sam Jones?
No, I've never seen that one.
Now, that one's pretty good. It's so much closer to the actual comics. That fucking piece of garbage that Frank Miller directed, I feel sorry for the kid that was in that. He got thrown away, too. He's on Suits, mind you. He's been on Suits for like 8 years, so at least he has a job.
He's bounced back at least somewhat to get have a long job.
Yeah, Brandon Routh after Superman, done.
And I think he was fine too. Like the film wasn't good.
Yeah, but they are Brandon good Routh in their roles, and that's the thing that bothers me. Is it seems like the studio blames the actor and not the director.
Oh, just for a tangent on a tangent. Brandon Routh. Did you see Dylan Dog?
Yes, I did.
I love him in that. That was so good.
Yeah, I'm thinking of revisiting that one because I feel like there's a lot of movies you could discuss that are based on independent comics. You know, nothing from Marvel or DC. Stuff that you wouldn't expect to be based on a comic. You know, like Time Cop and Road to Perdition, Ghost World, Red, Men in Black, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot out there. A lot of stuff that we love is actually based off comics, and no one really seems to think about that.
Yeah, The Mask. I don't think people think that that's based on a comic book. It is.
Yeah, nowhere near nothing like the comic book. But
you know what's weird? As I used to live a block away from Dark Horse Comics, and at their headquarters, they have a huge window display of all their famous characters. And yet, I see Aliens, I see Predator, I see Star Wars, I see no Hellboy, I see no Time Cop, I see no Mask. What the fuck? They easily could have put a Hellboy on their roof, staring off like a gargoyle onto the city. So, just what are you thinking?
Exactly. Hellboy surprised. Time Cop doesn't. I'll be honest. Time Cop doesn't surprise me at all.
That's true. It's so obscure. But it was a big hit.
The Mask surprises, but yeah, Hellboy especially. That I'm kind of shocked at that one.
Why don't they have statues of mystery men?
I love that movie, but no.
Yeah. I wanted to do an episode about Mystery Men and the Specials because they're so similar in their plot, yet so wildly different in their execution. I can't find the Specials anywhere.
I have it. I own it.
Can you save it on your computer and turn me?
We'll see what can.
That was subtle. That was it. I think we're gonna get arrested. Okay, so we've actually gotten longer than I expected on this one, but the next episode I'm doing is about X-Men in the 80s with my friend Ken Reed. Gonna do one about martial arts comics throughout the decades, starting with Shang-Chi, doing Richard Dragon, the Kung Fu Fighter, Way of the Rat from Cross Gen Comics. I think we're gonna do that one. Then did I send you Captain Canuck?
Yes, you did.
And I would love to do Alpha Flight and Captain Canuck because those are basically the only Canadian superheroes anybody's ever heard of.
Yeah, I can do that.
And I think that'll be it for me for the rest of the year. And then there are stories I definitely want to discuss down the road. I want to do Kingdom Come, Marvels. What are some of the ideas that you're thinking of?
I actually would love to once it's actually done, I would love to talk about House of X and Powers of X because just the second issue of House of X is one of those things where you go like, people talk about, oh yeah, we're going to drop a bomb on you about something.
Yeah.
And usually it's kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, that was kind of a surprising thing. It's like, no, this actually kind of fundamentally changes X-Men completely.
That's cool. I've been reading Iceman lately, and I'm actually surprised at how good it is. Because Iceman's always been one that's hard to pin down, even though he's my favorite X-Men. It does seem like he only works when he's part of the X-Men. But this guy, I can't remember his name, but he did a really good job with it in the recent series. And Nightcrawler, that's another one of my favorite X-Men. I would love to discuss the miniseries from I want to say it was like 2004, where it's really dark and complex, and he goes to Europe to solve a mystery. It's more like a swashbuckling detective. It's pretty cool.
Nightcrawler's such a great character. I love him so much.
Avengers Disassembled is one of the greatest storylines I would love to discuss.
Well, if you do that, then you should definitely pair it with House of M.
We did actually House of M 3 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we should have done it in order. I know this, but for some reason I could not at the time get anybody to do Avengers Disassembled with me. I'm like, fuck it, let's just do House of M. I'll come back later.
Yeah, because those are two storylines that very much have to exist together.
Yeah, totally. I totally forgot. On Tuesday, I am recording the new Teen Titans run from the early '80s. George Perez and Marv Wolfman were working on. I forgot. That was epic. I don't know if you've ever read New Teen Titans, but
I've read some of it. I finally got around to seeing. Really reading Judas Contract.
Oh,
and one of the collections right after that.
The TV show is a big bag of ass. I fucking hate it. The live action one, oh god.
I couldn't get into it. I just want my old Teen Titans cartoon.
Okay, I think we padded this enough. All right, so where can we hit you up on Twitter?
I am at Musician, MYUZISHION.
All right, and we are on Facebook under Back in Tunes. That's where you'll find all the episodes of that show and comics on Infinite Earths. And he has been filling in this summer the Anime Blast, the Summer of Anime. We've done, 4 or 5 now?
4 or 5 of them. Most recent one's Sailor Moon. And we're going to be getting on a couple of more for the rest of the summer, and then take a break. Be able to do some deep dives.
Yeah, and then of course during the fall, maybe that's how it should work. Maybe comics on Infinite Earths during the the fall and winter, and cartoons during spring and summer.
That could be good. Keep away from not getting burned out on anything.
Totally. Yeah, it's your call. Like I said, I have this huge project. I can't announce it yet. It's going to take 2 years to do. It's a spin-off of Video Night, and I'm very, very excited about it, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Dude, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it's all about the Pauly Shore movies, and it's a 6-part on each movie. In the Army now, and its relevance to our society.
That thing is, it probably is far more relevant today than it was.
It actually probably is. I jokingly did that, but there is one episode I want to mention real quick of Video Night that I would like to do before I go off and focus on the spinoff, though, and I want to offer it to you first. 70s dystopia. We're talking Omega Man. We're talking Soylent Green, Damnation Alley, Logan's Run, shit like that.
God, it's been forever since I've seen Logan's Run. I need to see that again. So I think I'd probably be down.
Cool. I don't know why I offered it on the air. What if you had said no? It was so awkward. I feel like you only said yes because we're live in front of audience, and it's like the way you propose to somebody at a restaurant. You don't say no because you look like an asshole then. You're like, oh fuck, everybody's looking at me. Yes, I'll do the 70s dystopia. I'm down on one knee, John. Mostly because I tripped. All right, I am literally sitting here with a microphone cord around my face like a giant mustache, and I think maybe I'm tired and I should go.
Get a little loopy now.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm going to take a picture of this and post it. All right, everybody. Like I said, Facebook under Back in Tunes. Him on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really do much. I just comment, go, yay! Click heart. That's it. Bye!
Yeah, it's mostly me.
Bye.